One of the most important decisions made by an IEP team is determining where the student with a disability should receive their special education and related services along the continuum. The LRE should be determined annually. The decision must be based on the student's individual needs. Schools must provide a continuum of placement options for teams to consider. Avoid predetermination, which occurs when members of the team decide a student's placement before the IEP meeting without the parent's participation or input. This constitutes a denial of faith because it significantly impedes parents' participation in the development of the IEP. Unless the IEP of a child requires some other arrangement, the child should attend the school he or she would if non-disabled. If an IEP team determines that the child should receive services in a location other than his or her neighborhood school, this decision must be justified based on the needs of the child. An example would be a child who needs specialized service that requires a small number of students be grouped together. It is important that children are not removed from the general education classroom just because of a need for modifications. Children with disabilities need to be educated alongside their general education peers to the greatest extent possible. Placement decisions must be determined individually based on each child's abilities, unique needs, and IEP, and not solely on factors such as category of disability, severity of disability, availability of special education-related services, the configuration of the service delivery system, availability of space, or administrative convenience. Schools are required to have a continuum of LRE placements. For placements, we must determine how supplementary aids and services can be implemented to help a child be successful in a lesser restrictive environment and as close as possible to the general education class. The appropriateness of the environment must be monitored, and changes made to services or changes in placement to best meet the needs of the child. Data must always be utilized in LRE placement decisions. Here's a step-by-step method to consider services along the continuum and begin to explain why the student should be removed from the general education classroom. Number 1, can they participate in the general education class without accommodations? If the answer to number 1 is no, then number 2, can they participate in the general education classroom with accommodations? If the answer to number 2 is no, then a detailed explanation is needed to justify removing the student away from their non-disabled peers. This statement must be individualized for each student. That means not every student or group of students has the same explanation as to why they will not participate in general education settings for a portion of their day. The State Department of Education must ensure that LRE requirements are implemented appropriately by school districts, and this includes monitoring the justification for LRE decisions. LRE justification statements should be individualized. However, a few samples are provided to assist you in formulating these detailed explanations. Some possible reasons students may need to be removed from general education settings include behavior, such as aggressive or disruptive behaviors, social concerns, for example, when acquiring social skills or when services may impact social acceptance in general education settings. The environment could be due to a need for structure or reduced distractions, and in cases where students are earning high school credits and the skills and instruction are not part of the general education course.